Welcome to the wonderful channel where books are discussed. Yes, there is a summary of this book too. If you're ready, let's get started.
Hey, it's me. In this video, we're going to look at Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. If you'd like to read along, the full text is available online. Let's get started. All right, let's begin with the setting and context. Pride and Prejudice was published in 1813, so it's set in the early 19th century in rural England. Rural England, specifically the county of Hertfordshire. It's important to note that this is not the Industrial Revolution or Victorian England. This is pre-industrial England, which has its own unique flavor. The focus of the novel is the Bennet family, who have 5 daughters, which is a lot, especially in this time period. There are also a couple of other families in the neighborhood. One is the wealthy family of the de Bourghs, who have an only daughter named Anne. And then there's the Bingleys, who are a friendly, fun-loving family who rent a large estate nearby called Netherfield. So the overarching context of the novel is that this is a society where women are expected to marry. And when they do, they'll move into the household of their husband and give up their own legal identity. So the mother is very anxious about getting her 5 daughters married. Men are not under the same pressure, but it's still important for them to marry, primarily for the continuation of the family name and also to carry on their bloodline. They also need to make advantageous matches, because if you're poor, it can be difficult to find someone willing to marry you. Okay, so what is the main plot of Pride and Prejudice? Well, one day there's a party at the home of the Bennets, and a wealthy bachelor from London named Mr. Bingley comes along with his friend, Mr. Darcy. Then Mr. Bingley falls in love with the eldest Bennet sister, Jane. He's a pretty straightforward guy and just goes ahead and asks her to marry him, and she says yes. Now, Darcy, on the other hand, does not ask any of the Bennet sisters to marry him. In fact, he seems to dislike Elizabeth. And part of the reason is that he thinks she's beneath him socially, whereas another part of it is that he has a prejudice against her whole family. So Elizabeth has a prejudice against him because she sees that he's proud and disagreeable, whereas he has a prejudice against her because of her family. Now, another thing that happens is that Mr. Collins proposes to Elizabeth and she turns him down. He's a really awkward guy. He's a clergyman who's been put in charge of managing the Bennet estate. And he is completely obsequious towards Lady Catherine de Bourgh, who's the dominant woman in the neighborhood. Now, after Elizabeth rejects Mr. Collins, he marries her cousin, Charlotte Lucas, who is much more down-to-earth than Elizabeth and understands that it's better to marry someone like Mr. Collins than no one at all. After this, Mr. Bingley goes back to London and Jane and Elizabeth are miserable about it. But then he returns with Mr. Darcy, who now proposes to Elizabeth. She refuses him because she remembers his pride and his prejudice against her family. She also knows that he was partly responsible for breaking up Bingley and Jane because he convinced his friend to go back to London by saying that the Bennets were beneath him. At this point in the novel, there's a big shift in tone. Elizabeth and Darcy each go away for several weeks, and while they're gone, letters are sent back and forth between them explaining their actions and why they did things. Elizabeth learns that Darcy actually saved her family from ruin when he paid off the debts of her silly, spendthrift father. And Darcy learns that he's been wrong about her family, and especially about Jane. Then when they meet again, they discover that their prejudices were unfounded. They fall in love and get married, and Jane and Bingley also end up together. So that's the main plot. Let's move on to some of the major characters. We've already met Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. Let's look at some of the other major players. Mr. Bingley is a pretty simple guy who likes to follow his heart. He's the one who falls in love with Jane Bennet and proposes to her right away. His friend, Mr. Darcy, is the opposite sort. He has a lot of pride and thinks he's better than everyone else. And he tries to hold back his feelings for Elizabeth because he thinks she's beneath him. Then there's Jane Bennet, who's the eldest sister and Elizabeth's role model. She's beautiful and sweet, and she eventually ends up with Mr. Bingley. Then Mrs. Bennet is the mother of the 5 Bennet sisters. She's loud and obnoxious and embarrassing, and all she cares about is marrying off her daughters. Then there's Mr. Collins, who's a clergyman who's in charge of managing the Bennet estate. He's awkward and foolish and obsequious to the wealthy Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Also, Lady Catherine de Bourgh is a rich, bossy woman who thinks she's higher on the social rungs than everyone else. Her daughter, Anne, is extremely shy and has been sheltered by her mother, which makes her seem a little strange. Okay, so next, let's talk about some of the major themes in Pride and Prejudice. One of the biggest ones is marriage for love versus marriage for money. Elizabeth wants to marry for love, whereas Charlotte Lucas, her best friend, thinks that's a foolish idea. She just wants a stable life and some financial security. And she's willing to marry someone like Mr. Collins to achieve that goal. Another major theme is the importance of not judging people based on their first impressions. Elizabeth judges Mr. Darcy to be proud and disagreeable. But once she starts hearing more about him, and seeing him in a different light, she realizes that he's neither proud nor disagreeable. Then there's the theme of social class. Obviously, Darcy believes that he's higher on the social rungs than the Bennets, but as the novel progresses, he realizes that social class doesn't mean anything if you're a jerk. And Elizabeth realizes that even though Darcy is higher on the social ladder, he's not necessarily better than her. Okay, so what are the major symbols in Pride and Prejudice? One of them is Pemberley, which is the country estate owned by Mr. Darcy. When Elizabeth visits here, she realizes that he's not the proud and disagreeable man she originally thought he was. Another symbol is the letter, which stands for love letter, but also stands for legal document. Remember that in this time period, when women marry, they sign away their legal identity and become the property of their husband. Alright, now let's wrap this up with the resolution. The resolution of Pride and Prejudice is pretty satisfying. Elizabeth and Darcy find true love, and they also learn to overcome their flaws. He sheds his pride, and she sheds her prejudice. In the end, they marry, as do Jane and Mr. Bingley. And it looks like the future is bright for all of them. At the end of the novel, there's even a hint that the silly spendthrift father of the Bennet sisters might be reformed. Okay, that's what you need to know about Pride and Prejudice. I'm from a learning channel, and if you want to keep learning, the best way to do that is to keep watching. Our videos are made possible by our patrons. You can find out more about how you can support us by going to our support page. Thanks for watching.
The summary of another book is finished. What did you learn from this book? Have you read it before? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe and like the channel.